Tribal Chairman Amah Mutsun, thank you so much for being here, sharing your thoughts. Good evening, I'm Steve Pleich. I'll be your host for this edition again of Voices from the Village, and good evening again. As you know, Voices is the longest running issues-oriented community television production. We've been here for 17 years, really addressing a lot of very important issues that impact not only our county locally, but our region. And this evening we'll be talking about something that not only has local impact, but also a regional impact. You may hear my laryngitis a little bit, but fortunately you're not going to have to listen to much of my voice tonight, because I have an esteemed panel with me this evening whose voices you will want to listen to as we talk about the Juristac. With me is Valentin Lopez, who's the chair of the Amah Mutsun Tribal Band, and it goes by Val. So Val, welcome.
Mm-hmm.
We have Alice Kaufman, committee for the Green Foothills.
Yes.
I did that wrong to begin with, and then now I've got it. Committee for Green Foothills. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you.
And Dr. Stuart Weiss, conservation ecologist. Stuart, welcome. As we start, I really want to give people a sense and a flavor of what we're talking about, and I was struck by something that Val said in the literature that I was given by Tony Bauer. Thank you, Tony, for providing all of that information for us. And let me see. Chairman Lopez says, Juristac is a pristine state in relation to the surrounding region. When you look at our other ceremonial sites and our hunting, fishing, and gathering places, the vast majority of these places have been lost to development. Juristac is one of the very last remaining undisturbed areas. Our Amah Mutsun tribe maintains that once disturbed by mining, there will be no way to rehabilitate the cultural and spiritual aspects of the landscape. I think that's beautifully said, and it really frames the issue for us.
Mm-hmm.
Val, why don't you tell our viewers something about yourself, and really not only your connection to the tribe, but also to the land.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. My name again is Valentin Lopez, and I'm the chairman of the Amah Mutsun Tribal Band. Our tribe is comprised of the descendants of those that were taken to Mission San Juan Bautista and Mission Santa Cruz. Our people have lived on these lands for 12, 14, 15,000 years. And if you think of that in terms of generations, that's 800, 900, perhaps 1,000 generations or more.
Wow.
How long our people have been here. The central coast of California was the most populated of indigenous people north of Mexico City at first contact. This had the heaviest population. And it's easy to understand why, because the resources are so plentiful, the rivers, the lakes, the ocean, the plants, the mild climate. It was just really a spectacular place to for our ancestors who lived there. And we know that we were truly blessed by Creator for choosing us to take care of that. Our creation story tells us that that the Amah Mutsun have the responsibility to take care of Mother Earth and all living things. And with that directive, our people took care of learned how to take care of the environment in a very sustainable way. They learned how to take care of the plants. So they provided for a full community. They learned how to use fire. They learned how to use coastal resources to keep them plentiful. Whenever we had the responsibility to take care of Mother Earth and all living things, we had the responsibility to make sure that the bears, for example, who did not migrate in our who did not hibernate in our territory.
Oh, is that right?
But because of the mild climate, they didn't need to. But then that also meant that they needed the food resources, through all four seasons. And so our people had to, work and learn how to, what foods could sustain them during those winter months, for example, and such. Our people knew, first and foremost, that the most important part of taking care of Mother Earth was maintaining its spirituality. And for that reason, they developed prayers and ceremonies, etc. Our most important place for ceremony, our most sacred site, is Juristac. And Juristac is at the very bottom end of the Santa Cruz Mountains. And it is also an important corridor for passage to the Gabilan Mountains or east to the Diablo Range Mountains. So it's a very important part there. But our people had the most important ceremonies there. The Juristac translates to the place of the big head. And the big head dance are the most important ceremonies, not only for the Amah Mutsun, but for many California tribes. And it was also the home of our spiritual leader. So that's a little bit of background about Juristac and why it is so important to us. Unfortunately, in the latter part of 2017, a proposal was submitted to Santa Clara County to develop a sand and gravel mining operation right there that would run for 30 years and would destroy four sacred mountains at Juristac, and it would just put a big pit in the ground.
But we'll get to that as we get a little further along. But thank you for really kind of framing beautifully, in fact, the importance of this particular space on the earth. Alice Kaufman, Committee for Green Foothills. Alice, welcome. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your connection with Juristac and Amah Mutsun.
Yeah, so my name is Alice Kaufman, and I am the Legislative Advocacy Director with Committee for Green Foothills. We're an organization, a nonprofit organization that works to protect open space and natural resources in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. And so our connection with Juristac is we work to protect all these hillsides that, as Val said, are almost pristine, and to protect the resources, the natural resources that are there, including the wildlife habitat and the wildlife migration corridors. So this is a very important issue, not only for its cultural and spiritual significance to the Amah Mutsun and to all of us, I believe, but also for its environmental impacts.
Wonderful. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Stuart Weiss. Stuart, welcome, conservation ecologist. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your connection really to Juristac and the ecological impact.
So I'm a conservation ecologist. I've worked all over the western United States, but really my home turf is the Bay Area. And I work with a lot of threatened and endangered species, but also looking at the broader landscape. Project we just finished up was the Bay Area Conservation Lands Network 2.0, which tried to just looking at all the protected open space and try to find those places that are essential to completing a network of protected lands for plants and wildlife that will have a chance of sustaining itself in an era of rapid environmental change. And a really important component of that is the connectivity of the landscape so that animals like puma and badger can move as freely as possible, given all the constraints that we've and all the barriers we've put in their way. And I think I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. And you are, as you do this work, you're receiving some support from the state of California in trying to generate and sustain open spaces here?
It's a project of the Bay Area Open Space Council, which is a consortium of all of the government agencies, park districts, nonprofits, advocacy groups, and land trusts. That is really trying to take a look at the entirety of the Bay Area and be able to put any one place in a broader context, because the connectivity and continuous nature of the landscape is absolutely essential to conserving biodiversity. Species need room to move, especially in an era of rapid climate change.
Well, wonderful, thank you. And I'll remind our viewers, this is a live call-in program, 425-8848, extension 630. So if you have a question for our panelists, please call, and I'm certain they can give you an informed and knowledgeable and passionate answer to that. So Val, you're talking about this 2017, coming in with this proposal for sand and gravel. Did that catch you all by surprise? Were you prepared for this? Was there some idea that there was going to be some development of your sacred grounds, or?
Well, probably a year or so before that, Sergeant Ranch went into bankruptcy, and so we knew that there was going to be a new owner of Sergeant Ranch, and we were really worried about someone wanting to come on in and just develop it somehow. We had no idea it was going to be a sand and gravel mining operation, but we knew that they were going to come on in and look to monetize it. And so we knew we were going to have to, step up and work hard to protect and conserve Juristac. And so once they submitted the proposal, we were notified of it, and we immediately contacted the county and requested consultation with it. So we've been in the consultation process with the county for quite a while now, and such. So that's how we became aware of it.
This is the county of Santa Clara?
Yes, Santa Clara County.
Right. And how is your relationship with them, with those kind of bureaucrats who sometimes quite don't understand the necessity and the beauty and the sacred aspect of land?
You're absolutely right. There's policies and regulations and a general plan. It lays out what can and cannot be done there, and that's what they base their decisions on. But whenever we talk about it being sacred and spiritual lands, there's nothing in the regulations that addresses, the protection of sacred lands.
Right.
And such. So we have a real uphill fight here. We have a really tough fight here. And to get the county to recognize sacredness when they're supposed to not consider, they look at this as bringing religion into their decision making, and they're not supposed to do that. So it does make it hard. The other thing is that, our Native American spirituality has never been appreciated, understood, respected, or valued, and stuff like that. So many of our sites have been destroyed already, and so so they just don't look at it as being important, I'm afraid.
And Alice, how does the Committee for Green Foothills, what's their part in facing this challenge, in helping maintain and preserve these the tribal spiritual sacrament lands?
Right. Our work as legislative advocacy director, my work with Committee for Green Foothills focuses on basically helping agencies like the County of Santa Clara to make the decisions that are environmentally responsible. And in this case, as we're working with the tribe and with Chairman Lopez, we're also asking them to prioritize, to make decisions that are spiritually responsible and culturally responsible. Right. And as Val says, it's not in the regulations to say, you must respect Native American culture and Native American spirituality. But we believe that it's so important now that the impacts that this sand mining operation would have on both the ecological and the cultural significance of the site, the impacts are so severe that it is the responsibility of the county to take that into account and to deny the project.
And Stuart, you can speak to the environmental impact and the danger this really represents.
Right. So in the bigger picture, I think it's really important to acknowledge that the the quote natural legacy we've been inherited in California really is the responsibility of Val's ancestors for hundreds of generations tending the land. And we've done a really good job of ripping it apart in a lot of ways. So when we look at the region in terms of where wildlife has a chance to get in and out of the Santa Cruz Mountains, the Santa Cruz Mountains are largely an island now. There's just a few tenuous connections to the Diablo Range and to the Gabilan Range. And recently, one of those tenuous connections at Coyote Valley in South San Jose was protected. Still a lot of work to maintain, to enhance the connectivity in there, but at least it's not going to get developed. And the other big area really is Juristac. It's kind of like all roads lead through Juristac.
Right.
That's how animals can get into the Pajaro River corridor. That's how they can get south towards through the Chittenden Gap. So for animals like the puma and the badger, it's really, really important that they have genetic exchange in and out of the Santa Cruz Mountains. Some recent research has shown that the puma population, the mountain lions, are very inbred and at really great risk. The local population has even been proposed for listing under the California Endangered Species Act because of the genetic isolation. You know, we all know inbreeding is just, you know, that doesn't work for very long.
Of course.
So the maintaining that connectivity, there's like the 101 bridge over the Pajaro River, which is like a wildlife highway going perpendicular to our highway. And when you look at the plans for Juristac, it's almost like putting up a fence that will really, you know, restrict the movements of wildlife in and out of the area. Putting a large industrial complex like a sand mine in the middle of a already tenuous wildlife corridor is not a good idea if we're actually serious about maintaining the connectivity of the landscape.
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, so one other impact is the Sargent Creek watershed. There's this the watershed that's going to bear the brunt of this sand mine if it goes in.
Let me see if we have a call. We have a call here. We have a question for one of our panelists.
Yes, first of all, I want to say it's a great show to address these issues.
Oh, thank you.
Facing us right now. And I'm worried about habitat destruction. Basically, where they're building all the new houses and they're going up into the hills more and more, they're displacing all kinds of animals. And I'll take my answer off air.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Alice? Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As the caller says, this is a very great issue. It's a very great concern that we all have. The patterns that the historic patterns of development, of pushing out into our open space areas, of going up into the hills, are very destructive not only to habitat, but they're not good for us as a society, and it's not good for the environment as a whole. We've seen with wildfire issues what can happen when we have too many homes out in the wildland-urban interface. And it's also a climate change issue, because when people live farther out from the places that they have to commute to, like their work and their schools, then they're putting more greenhouse gases into the air. So, you know, the environmentally smart thing to do is not to develop in the open space areas, but to keep our future growth in our infill areas. Now, the proposal for Juristac isn't a question of housing; it's a question of an industrial sand mining operation. But still, the impact on terms of destruction of open space, destroying our carbon absorbing potential of the open space areas is really significant, no matter whether you dig it up or put homes on it.
Yeah, so going a little further back in the history of Sargent Ranch, groups like the Committee for Green Foothills fought off a massive housing golf course proposal there. I forget what a couple of decades ago, or
Really?
2001?
yeah, about a decade ago.
Wow.
Like 5,000 plus homes and golf courses, and so it's been temporarily saved once, and that was what triggered the bankruptcy of the development company, and then it went into the receivership. So the conservation of open spaces and wildlife habitat in general is a regional cultural value in the Bay Area. I talk to people in other regions doing conservation work, and I get accused of being in this Bay Area bubble. And I turn it back on them and I say, no, we're a beacon.
There you go.
We're trying to conserve
That's
at
right.
least half the
That's right.
landscape
Yeah.
by 2050 in formal open space protection. And that's really what it takes to conserve biodiversity.
Yeah, and I know there's the ecological impact and the importance of that, but also I think what interests me and as an individual is more respect for tribal and sacramental lands. And we had something here in Santa Cruz, you may recall, when they were building housing development on some Ohlone Native American burial grounds. And Danny Sheehan, if you know Danny, of course, does wonderful work, led the charge to make sure that was preserved, that was honored. And they did come to an accommodation with that here in Santa Cruz. So I think there's more awareness of that. And so when people talk about Juristac and Mutsun, it's not something they say, well, what's this about? I think they say, I want to know more. Yeah.
Well, our Native Americans, especially here in California, have been and being federally unrecognized. We are a federally unrecognized tribe. We've been forgotten and ignored and erased from history. Just 15, 20 years ago, no one knew that there were even Native Americans from this area still here.
Yeah.
And so we lived underground throughout the 1900s. We would not. When I was growing up, my mom, every time I would leave the house, my mom and my grandmothers, they would always say, remember, always say you're Mexican, never say you're Indian. Because it wasn't safe. Because of the laws here in California, those early laws, they allowed bounty hunting for Indians. They paid military excursions to go out and hunt down Indians and to kill them. Here in Santa Cruz in 1873, the Santa Cruz Sentinel published an article that said that they will no longer pay bounty money for California Indian scalps. And that's right here on the lands that we're on today.
Yeah.
And so our great-grandparents, they lived through that, so they pass it on to the children. Don't say you're Indian, say you're Mexican.
Right.
And that got passed on through my generation and such, So, but in the year 2003, the elders asked me to run for chair, and I ran for chair, and then they said we have to start presenting ourselves to the public and let them know who we are, that we're still here. Because a lot of people were trying to present themselves as Amah Mutsun, and we didn't know who they were, and what they were saying about our culture and stuff wasn't correct. And so we said, no, we need to start speaking up ourselves.
Right.
And then in 2006, they said we needed to start speaking up for our lands. And we needed to start fulfilling our obligation to Creator, to take care of Mother Earth. And so, from 2006 to the present, we've been fighting very hard to preserve and protect our cultural sites, to restore the indigenous knowledge of our ancestors, to educate our members and educate the public about who we are, and to and to honor our ancestors and fulfill our obligation to Creator.
Yeah.
And so we've been working hard since that time.
I really do find that fascinating. It's part of my living in Santa Cruz County and having lived in Santa Clara County, is that the appreciation for indigenous peoples and their rights and the things that they were here that have somehow been forgotten or pushed aside. And the more I hear about it, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, and we're certainly here to talk about the Santa Gravel Pit and protecting Juristac, and that's extremely important. In the larger picture, I think, if there's something to be said for awareness of indigenous peoples as a people and as the rights, and to go beyond the biases and go beyond the prejudices and go beyond, you know, the seeming disregard of their part in history of California, which is extremely rich.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, and there's a lot of stories out there that are not true. I mean, in so many ways, people think of us as just being unsophisticated hunters and gatherers. You know, we just randomly looked for food and we found something and got lucky. You know, and they're finding out that that's not true at all.
Yeah.
Our people, that, you know, they really did manage the food and the food and the medicine and the basketry and the other, you know, and the other crafting materials in a very sustainable way. And as a matter of fact, we're doing a lot of work now with UC Santa Cruz, UC Berkeley and Stanford and other universities and stuff like that. And they're finding out that the way that our people took care of the land and stuff like that is going to be critical if we're going to address issues related to climate change. You know, I mean, the way we took care of the plants, our grasslands took you know, would develop root systems that went down 15, 20 feet deep, and that makes them much more resistant to flooding, to fire, to drought, etc.
So I want to make sure that we give people an opportunity who are watching this that are concerned about and interested about preserving and really honoring indigenous peoples' rights and lands, how they can engage in this. And so give us a couple of ideas about what they can do so we can tell our folks, and they'll have runners underneath on the TV to let us know.
Okay. You want to do that?
Oh, sure. So, you know, we have a really broad coalition of local residents and organizations and community leaders who have come together to stand with the Amah Mutsun in defense of Juristac and in opposition to the quarry. And where the process is at right now is the County of Santa Clara has been working on their draft environmental impact report for some time now, and they've been telling us that they're going to be releasing that pretty soon. And when they do, so they release the draft, it's called the EIR, the draft EIR. When that is released, then the public has an opportunity to comment. And the public can do that by sending in written comments to the county, and they will provide an email address that you can send that to, or you can also, they'll be having a public hearing where people can come.
We are going to interrupt our speaker for just a moment, and then we'll be right back. And then you can So Alice, please finish what you were saying, and then I want to talk about some other things in relation to the environmental impact report itself.
Yes. So as I was saying, once Santa Clara County releases the draft environmental impact report, They will have an opportunity for the public to submit written comments, and they will also have a public hearing at which people can attend in person and make oral comments. And during the break, you asked if there's an opportunity for people to send in comments right now. People can submit emails to the county now. That's not going to be part of the environmental impact process, but it's information that the county receives and takes into account as they're making their decision.
All right.
So we definitely encourage people to comment now if they want to to comment on the environmental impact report when that comes out, and just to make their voices heard in every way that they can, because this is a public process.
Yeah.
And the county wants to know how the public feels. That's the whole point of this process. So everybody should feel free, and you don't have to live in Santa Clara County. Folks in Santa Cruz County and the city of Santa Cruz, folks from anywhere
Wonderful.
around the state, around the
That's
country,
something
if
we
they
should
want
do.
to, yes,
Yeah.
can submit comments. And so we don't have the contact information for that right now. But if people want to send in something right now, they can go to the protectjuristac.org website.
Beautiful.
And
There you go.
there's a petition there where
Yeah.
people can fill out the petition,
Good.
and they can send in their own words. They can simply sign under the petition. There's a lot of different things people can do.
There's also a resource section on the website, Protect Juristac, and that resource will tell you where to mail your letters to the County Board of Supervisors
Right.
and to the county planners.
Yeah. Now, as tribal chairman, do you have, as really a point person for this, do you have some interaction with the Board of Supervisors or the folks who are actually preparing the environmental impact report itself?
Well, under AB 57, we requested formal consultation with the county planning department on this. And one thing that we did request was that they do an ethnographic study of Juristac to show how it is an important and significant part of the Amah Mutsun spirituality and culture. And that study was completed, and it's still confidential.
Right.
But we do encourage people, once the draft EIR comes out, to read that ethnographic study or the cultural resource part of that report, and they will see how strong the Amah Mutsun ties are to Juristac. And there's a lot, we believe that there is a lot of justification there that shows the importance of protecting Juristac.
And I know that much of the content of any environmental impact report is very technical. Stuart, are they asking you as an expert to offer some opinion about this particular issue?
Yeah, I'm going to be going through certain sections with a fine-tooth comb.
Okay. There you go.
Addressing issues like the wildlife connectivity and the wildlife linkage. Then also the impacts on the Sargent Creek watershed, like I was starting to talk about earlier. They're going to be digging pits that are hundreds of feet deep to get to this sand and gravel resource. And the vast majority of the area is going to be in the Sargent Creek watershed. Well, the Sargent Creek watershed is home to a rather unusual population of California red-legged frogs, which are listed as a threatened species by the federal government and the state government, because it's unusual in that pre-European contact, the red-legged frogs were like everywhere in the valley bottoms, in the wetlands, in the vernal pools. And since we've developed all of the vast majority of the valley bottoms, these frogs have been relegated to the foothills and generally in stock ponds. Finding a population living in an undisturbed watershed is actually relatively rare in this state, and gives us a sense of what the ancestral condition was, much more so than frogs living in stock ponds. And there are two pits that they're talking about digging out that are hundreds of feet deep, that are on like either side of Sargent Creek. and they're going to be making the claim they're not going to be affecting the
Right,
creek because
yeah.
they're not right in the creek. And, you know, that has downstream effects because Sargent Creek flows into the Pajaro River. Right now, it's providing probably the highest quality water possible.
Yeah.
And when you start digging pits that are hundreds of feet deep, disrupting the local aquifer, and it's going to have a lot
No,
of
it's a
downside.
nettlesome problem, and people don't understand what crucial part watersheds play in not only our water supply but our environment. And
Yeah.
So, you know, we have a great coastal watershed council here in Santa Cruz County, as you know, and they're very much stewards of that of our watershed. Val, I wanted to ask you. Part of the information that Tony sent me, voluminous information about Juristac and Amah, Mutsun and yourselves. There's a wonderful address to the United Nations. You are taking the lead role as tribal chairman in this and in other ways for your tribe?
Yes, I did present the issue of Juristac at the United Nations.
Which I think is just fantastic.
And brought it to the attention of the world community that the destruction and domination of Native Americans in California never ended. It just evolved to these immoral laws, rules, and regulations that we see today that have no regard at all for our cultural sites, our spirituality, our environmental sites, our indigenous knowledge, and even our humanity.
Yeah.
There's no regard for it whatsoever. And we, you know, in our tribe, I mean, and I was directed as chair when I was elected,
Yeah.
it's time for that to stop. And we need to start speaking out. We are no longer going to be invisible, and no one's going to get a free ride regarding the destruction of our property anymore. And we're fighting not only Juristac at this time, but there's other proposals out there that we are objecting to that also impact important cultural sites and sacred sites as well.
And Alice, you were talking about the legislative aspect of this and your work with that. What form does that take?
Well, in this case, we're going to be meeting with the county supervisors and the planning commissioners and letting them know how the public feels and how all of the organizations and community leaders that are standing with the Amah Mutsun to oppose this quarry, we're going to be letting them know all of the details. We're going to be examining the environmental impact report and looking at what it details in terms of what it's going to be doing to this area. You know, I mean, as Stu said, they're talking about 4 open pits, hundreds of feet deep. They're talking about miles of truck haul roads, conveyor belt, a 14-acre processing plant. The project description that's on file with the county says that they're going to be pumping around 76,000 gallons of groundwater each day for quarry operations. That's a lot of groundwater to be pumping out. And this is all in service of sand and gravel, right? They're destroying a sacred site and a critical wildlife corridor for sand.
Right. And I ask the obvious question, is there no other area, no other place where they could be mining for sand and gravel other than Juristac?
There are sand and gravel quarries in existence right now in our area. The state of California has estimated that we have about 20 to 30 year supply of sand and gravel in the Bay Area to meet our needs.
Right.
There is no need for a sacred site to be destroyed in order to provide sand and gravel.
Well, let me ask you, that in your negotiations, discussions with the Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission, do you have a sense of their understanding of the importance of these tribal lands and sacred spaces?
Yeah, we've certainly made a point of making that known to them. We do believe that they understand the importance of it. You know, as we keep saying, the problem is that our current laws and regulations don't necessarily take into account the spiritual importance of Native American sites.
Right.
But we believe that there are good and responsible people at the county who understand this and who will take action on it. And it's just important for everybody in the public to let them know how important it is to everybody here.
Let me make one point
Please,
on that, if you
Val.
don't mind.
Yes.
Because What I've been raising with the County Board of Supervisors recently is that the United Nations I spoke at a conference on genocide in San Diego the week before last.
Right.
One of the definitions of genocide is the destruction of spirituality. I believe that what the county is doing here is genocide. Well, it qualifies as genocide for the impact it will have on the Amah Mutsun tribal people. And and so the county needs to realize that and recognize that that if they vote for the mining permit, that they are approving genocide, and that is no different than those people that passed the early laws that allowed the paying of bounty money, or paying or passed the laws to hunt down Indians and kill them. There's no difference here. It's that same mentality, that same destruction and domination, and total disregard for Native Americans as human beings.
Yeah. And I do have some knowledge of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and they seem, from what I have read and seen and understood, and people I've talked to, are relatively enlightened about certain things, about social justice and some things. Although I don't know this necessarily falls into social justice, but certainly it's an area in which had an enlightened approach would certainly benefit everybody, including your tribe.
I agree totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're hoping that a dynamic group like this, it's interesting, when Tony talked to me about having the show, and he gave me the list of panelists, and I was saying, well, geez, and looking at your backgrounds and the strengths that you each bring to this particular issue, the unity that you have with this, I think there's every reason to believe that you will be successful in your endeavors here. And I think that's really a credit to all of you. It's interesting. It's such an eclectic group, with the spiritual.
We're just representatives of a much, much larger coalition.
There is a
here.
huge coalition.
That's nice to know.
A huge community of people who are behind us.
Well, importantly, and your viewers, and probably very important to your viewers, is that we have a Friends of Juristac group here in Santa Cruz.
All right.
And we have another one in San Jose as well. So if people want to get involved, we said they can sign the petition or write letters. But another excellent way to get involved is to get involved with the Friends group. Yeah. And they can stay up to date on that.
Can they do that by going to the website? And is there some way to enroll, or is there some information? Here's the website.
There is a Friends of Santa Cruz website as well. Yes, and I don't know the URL, but I'm sure that if you Google Friends of Santa Cruz, that it would come up. Oh, I'm sorry, friendsofjuristac.org.
That's great. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
And I know that it's really crucially important, as we talk about some things that are really spiritually enlightening, to be mindful of the grind that is the bureaucratic process, and that is the environmental impact report, and the importance of people when the draft EIR comes out to make their comments, to make their feelings known, to put as many comments in there as possible in support of these tribal lands.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Because it does and can make a difference. I was talking earlier, I think perhaps to Stuart, about the desal plant that they had proposed to build here in Santa Cruz, and went through an environmental impact report, and they had hundreds of comments from people just saying, expressing their views about that particular project, and it does change minds. It does make a difference, and I think that's really important. And to have opportunities such as tonight, to have people say, "Well, I'm thinking about this now, and I'm going to frame, my address to make a comment when this particular thing comes up." So it's important.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I'm sure they will. But again, I think it's interesting that you have Stuart now and yourself. Are all bringing a little bit of different perspective to this. And I think in any successful coalition of people, then that's important, but it's also, I think, important, as I've seen over time, have strong leadership. And from what I saw in, the wonderful videos and information that Tony sent me, that you are that leader for the Amah Mutsun.
I'm the elected chair, and the elders have directed me to be the voice and to speak out for tribal issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were doing this daily in all the various things that affect the tribe?
I was elected chair when I was 51 years old.
And you're 52 now?
Yeah.
Almost. And when I was 53, I was so busy, I retired
Is that right?
at age 53, and I've been just making it work somehow to get by with the retirement at age 53. But I work hard. Well, the tribe works hard. It's not just me. The tribe works hard every day.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're all working hard on this. Anything else that comes to mind when we're talking about this particular environmental impact, the sacred lands, the
How about the
Stuart?
hydrology?
Please.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, I basically say, if this goes through Sergeant Creek, rest in peace if that's possible, because you simply can't dig multi-acre, hundreds of feet deep pits and maintain the hydrologic integrity of that. And like I said, it feeds into the Pajaro River. Right now, it's in an intact state. It's providing high quality water at a rate dictated by Mother Nature.
Right. Yeah.
And it's going to be a really, really different place if these sand mines go in. So there's there's the draft EIR, but then they have to get all of the permits from the regulatory agencies. So we have the Regional Water Quality Control Board. We have the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service because of the threatened red-legged frogs. We have the California Department of Fish and Wildlife that can weigh in not just with the frogs, but also with the wildlife connectivity, because the badger is a species of special concern. And as I was saying earlier, the local puma populations have been proposed for listing under the California Endangered Species Act. And there are multiple layers of permits that have to get signed off on. And it's a much less public process, but there are opportunities to intervene in that. I hope it doesn't get that far.
Right.
But the wildlife agencies and the Regional Water Quality Control Board have the ability to stop the project if they decide that the mitigations are not appropriate and to scale.
I mean, there's something else I think that is important to point out for your viewers, is that because this site is such a high priority for conservation, there's public and private funding available to purchase the entire site for conservation.
Yeah,
There
yes.
is.
There is.
That is an option that is available to the landowners. Rather than pursuing this quarry permit, they could right away today sell this land, the entire site, all of it that they own, including the site where the quarry is proposed, for permanent conservation and protection.
And they'd make a nice profit. They're just...
So what is their disincentive to doing that?
Haven't asked them, but I can only assume that it's because they believe that they will realize more profits if they get the quarry permit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important point that you make, Stuart, that much of the EAR process is very complex and and highly technical, and not the least bit transparent. So if you really want to know, you have to kind of get behind, where this, all the white papers and all the studies and all the things that are necessary to form this opinion, which basically is what an environmental impact report is.
Right.
But if you really have the knowledge, I wanted to ask you, Alice. The Committee for Green Foothills, is that something that there's a group of you? Is that you work with some folks in that group?
Right. Well, we work with all of the local environmental organizations.
Oh, okay.
You know, we work with the Amah Mutsun. We work with community organizations in the Bay Area as well.
Okay.
We work in San Mateo County and Santa Clara counties.
Oh, you
So
do?
we're very local.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been-
Local and
how long?
effective.
When were you established?
Since 1962.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
Been
Stuart
around a
says
long
you
time.
have been effective as well, so that's
Extremely
yeah.
effective.
Well, again, we don't work alone. We have many
Yeah.
partners. We work with the Sierra Club, Audubon Society, Greenbelt Alliance, Native Plant Society. There are a lot of environmental groups that we work with on a lot of different issues, including on this one. All of the local environmental community is united in saying that we need to protect Juristac and we need to defeat this quarry proposal.
And you find, Val, as tribal chairman, that you're getting some support from a lot of the environmental groups that are very interested in this issue as well.
Absolutely. We couldn't be more pleased with that. We knew that they would see Juristac as important from an environmental point of view, but after our discussions and stuff, they understand the spiritual aspects as well. So
Yeah.
whenever they speak out, they speak about those as well. So we're very pleased and happy with that. And we think that we can work together on a lot of issues in the future, concerning indigenous, regarding indigenous, concerns in the future. We have there is a statement of opposition out there that we are asking people to, organizations to sign up for as well.
Fantastic. All right.
And
Wonderful.
I don't have that now, but that is on our website
Okay.
at Protect Juristac,
All right.
and they'll see the statement of support there.
Okay.
And we ask them, individuals, to sign up, but it's important for organizations to sign up as well. And so we hope to just really add to that.
Yeah. Yeah, we would definitely encourage people to go to people can go to protectjuristac.org and sign up there to receive the emails. They can go to our organization, Committee for Green Foothills. That website's greenfoothills.org. If you sign
Okay.
up to receive our emails, then you'll be notified when the draft EIR comes out, so that you'll get the information on how to submit public comments on that. So there's a lot of different ways that people can show support, but just to get involved in the fight.
Right.
Get involved in the fight, and there will be a way that you can show your support.
Well, again, that's one of the reasons why we do these programs. One of the reasons why we like to have them live, so people are sitting in their living rooms all around Santa Cruz County, thinking about this. If they haven't been thinking about it before, they weren't aware of it before. Stuart, where can people get a hold of the wit and wisdom of? Of Stuart Weiss. Everybody seems to have some contact point. So are you in private practice?
Yeah, I'm in private practice.
Okay.
So I work for just about anybody who has a need for some expert conservation.
Yeah.
For me, it's been a real pleasure an honor over recent years to get to know Val and what the Amah Mutsun are trying to do. Because as I said earlier, we're living off this legacy of his ancestors tending the wild in California and creating, just an amazing ecosystem that we just take for granted, and understanding how they have, they manage this landscape sustainably for thousands and thousands of years, and we are not
so well.
stepping up. Yeah, we're not stepping. We're trying, but it's really an uphill battle to try to maintain the integrity and restore the integrity of the,
I'd like to add.
Please.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead,
Oh.
please.
Santa Cruz, the people of Santa Cruz, they do have an interest in a vested interest in Juristac. 1,800 acres. Juristac today, it's about 6,400 acres. Of that, 1,800 acres are in Santa Cruz County. And so, keeping Juristac as a whole and stuff like that, and returning it as a sacred site and as a cultural site, it will have great impact and benefits for Santa Cruz County as well, because a lot of the interest programs that we can do out there, the way we restore the habitat, the way that we take care of the plants, the food plants, medicine plants, those right there will help the Santa Cruz County as well. Plus the water, you know, the water's a big thing, because from the sand mine, the water's going to come right down the Pajaro.
So our viewers should consider contacting our local officials,
Yes.
our board of supervisors, our
Absolutely.
local environmental groups, our local policymakers and gatekeepers, and tell them what they believe is the importance of this.
Thank you for that.
particular area.
Absolutely
Yeah.
true.
And certainly you out there, that's what you can consider doing this evening, tomorrow, if you want to write a note to any one of our 5 supervisors here, please do. Tell them you've learned something on the community television about a very important issue. We've got about 2.5, 3 minutes left. Val, any final thoughts for our viewers as we go out and kind of digest what we've said and heard this evening?
You know, our history was tragic, and we don't blame the people, but there's a lot of healing that has to occur. And a lot of that healing is with the institutions and the systems that are out there that led to that destruction and domination of Native Americans. But at the same time, everybody who watches this show will benefit from that brutal history. And it's important that, you know, and what we ask them to do is to help us restore our traditions, help us restore our health, help us restore our spirituality and our culture. Work with us. The knowledge of our ancestors is important if we're going to survive in the future. And that's the message I would like to give them.
Thank you. That's beautifully said. And I will say again that you have a wonderful coalition of folks here. And this is a group, I think, that can protect the Juristac and make a difference in that. So, Stuart, Weiss, thank you so much for being
thanks
here.
for having
Alice
us.
Kaufman, thank you for being here and your group. Val, Tribal Chairman Amah Mutsun, thank you so much for being here, sharing your thoughts, and what I think is a spiritually uplifting opportunity for people to engage in something, and we don't often have that here. We talk about politics and elections and some things that may not impact the soul as much as we'd like, but tonight I think we've been able to touch our viewers with that. And we thank you for that. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for being here. This has been another episode of Voice in the Village. We'll be back next month to talk about some other things, but for now, we will see you